right. My name is Alec Liberman. I'm a Marine Corps veteran. I served from 2009 to 2013 when I EAS'd. I was a low altitude air defense Marine, and then did other things during each of my deployments. Since getting out, I got into fitness, did a couple of years of doing a one-man show, just in-home personal training. And then about 6 years ago now, I opened On Target Fitness here in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, where I live on my houseboat. And yeah, we've been jamming ever since. It's been a wild ride. You know, it's a steep learning curve. You have all the tools necessary, but you got to dig them up a little bit because it's a hard transition. You're not gonna have a steady paycheck, and we're used to a lot of stress in the military, but we're not actually used to a lot of financial stress unless we're kind of overspending that paycheck. But at least that paycheck comes in. So once you don't have a steady paycheck, and just sometimes you're just not making nearly enough money to live, and you feel those screws turn on you. That's something that you definitely have to learn to adjust to. And yeah, managing personal finances is like a skill you got to master. And then once you're really in business, managing business finances is like even more challenging than personal finances, because usually your business commitments aren't, personal finance. If you're a little overstretched, it's like, all right, let's not go out to dinner for a while. Let's cut a couple frivolous expenses. Business expenses, it's not that simple. If your business expenses mount badly enough, you're looking at like firing an employee or laying them off because it's your fault, which fortunately I've never had to do. But it's an adjustment, because those business expenses are usually much bigger commitments than those personal finance ones. I think the biggest skill that you develop from military service, that's helpful to owning business, is just that grit, that ability to be direct with people. Lots of things. It's kind of funny. You do have an adjustment, when you transition. You do need to be a civilian, but like you can't just sort of, I don't know, act like you're still in, because you're not anymore. But those skills do transition over. You got to smooth out those people skills a little bit so that you have a little more, better ways to communicate with people besides just torching them, if that was your style when you were in. And you can't just PT somebody to death when they piss you off anymore. So you got to have different ways of handling that. But the kind of like the character development that you get from serving, to just give you that grit to hang tough when it gets tough. And it is going to be tough. Owning a business has been as hard as being a Marine was for me. And it's hard. It's stressful. It's great. It's super rewarding. I mean, it's all the things that you remember from your service. It's in terms of like the challenge and then the stress that comes with it. So those skills carry over. If you're used to just being in a stressful environment, you're going to be in a stressful environment when you work for yourself. So in the fitness industry, some specific requirements if you're looking to get into that. For most states, I think almost for all of them, to be a personal trainer, it's not a licensed profession. So there's not a lot of like official state requirement, hoops that you need to go through as far as that's concerned. What you need is you need some basic certifications at the very least, just so you can be good at your craft. And then you obviously need to do a lot of the normal establishing a business stuff, like establishing an LLC and a trade name, registering with your state and adhering to any rules they might have. But yeah, other than that, the kind of certifications you want if you're looking to get into the fitness spaces. I'm a huge fan of Mike Boyle certified functional strength coach, of the DVRT certification, of Strong First, of Precision Nutrition. If you're looking for a nutrition cert, I've found and I've noticed over the years that a lot of the kind of traditional level 1 personal training certifications from the accredited sources, they don't actually give you a lot of practical knowledge. So it's definitely a good place to start. And maybe it's good to get one of those, from your NSCAs, your ACE, your ISA, those kinds of places, get an initial cert. But if you really want to learn the craft so that you can be a really good personal trainer, a really good coach on the floor, you need to be looking at those. I don't know if anybody besides me calls them, but those kind of alternative certifications. They're a little more in the weeds of what's actually happening right now in the real world. Ironically, some of those more legacy personal training certifications, they're great for a baseline, but it's funny. You can kind of get certified and then you're like, wait, but I still kind of don't know how to like run a session or workout or whatever. Like you still find that there's a lot that you don't know. So yeah, the certs are more for your benefit. Like when we're talking like the paperwork that you need, certs are more for your benefit than anything that's required. Not much in the way of licenses. Insurance for personal training is actually pretty affordable. Just find a broker and find a policy that works for you, but it's not particularly hard to get, and it's not particularly expensive or anything like that. Some of those certification bodies do also offer the ability to get insurance through them as well. It makes it really, really easy. So if we're talking, capital and equipment requirements for On Target Fitness, it was it was a shit show, but we got through it. Sorry, Holly, I don't know if I'm allowed to swear or not, but it is what it is. So what you're looking at, if you're to give you a sense of like the size of On Target Fitness and the scope of the operation, is it's about 7,000 square feet physical space. Of that, once you subtract lobby and bathrooms and stuff like that, we're looking at 4,500 square feet of training space that I spent. I think all in between $200,000 and $300,000 to like fit up, operating capital, all that stuff. That's fairly typical. If you're a little more organized than I was, you can probably avoid some of those losses. But even looking at, even doing the math on a second location now, even knowing what I know now, you're looking at about $300,000 all in for that business. Now, when you finance that through the SBA, you're looking at 25% down. So whatever that ends up being, $50,000 to $75,000 down is what you're looking at out of pocket, and then you're looking at being able to cover that monthly payment. Equipment's a funny one. You probably can start both with a space and with equipment that is smaller than you think. I happen to be in a fairly affordable rental situation. My space has always been bigger than I've needed. If I were shopping fresh, I'd be looking at a space half that size, maybe even smaller. I can presently run up to 3 small group personal training sessions of 6 clients each, meaning 18 personal training clients. So I can actually run quite a lot. I have the footprint to even set up another little zone and run 4 of those, which is honestly overkill. So if I were doing it all over again, I'd look at a place that can run 2 groups of 6, and that's it. So between 1,500 and 2,500 square feet is perfect. And that's also means that you're maxing out at between 130 and maybe 200 clients paying between $300 and $500 a month. So that's just a smoother operation in terms of startup costs. My thing's necessarily a little bit bigger, which is kind of fun, but bigger isn't necessarily better. I honestly see, I've driven across the country and visited some of the best functional training gyms in the country, and there are a bunch of 3,000 square foot places that give me jealousy. It's when you don't have to pay for like a massive space, you can make a smaller space a little bit nicer, and you can honestly run it more efficiently as a business, as well as just literally physically. You can physically run it more efficiently with the spacing. So that's like kind of broad brush what you're looking at. And then, in terms of equipment, start with less, buy the stuff that you need to buy. I don't think, as long as you're doing an SBA loan, I don't think it necessarily makes sense to lease the equipment. I think you can just buy it, but maybe if you're looking to preserve capital, if you're coming out, if you're bootstrapping that business, you might want to think about leasing it. I've paid/finance most of my gym equipment. I did lease to own a pretty expensive body composition analyzer as an in-body machine, which those I highly recommend, but you're looking at $7,000 to $10,000 on that thing, depending on the unit. So it stings to buy that when you're starting out a business, but it's an indispensable tool. I did lease to own that. It was a $200 a month payment for 2 years. And when you figure that I'm charging $300 a month for an average client, that's well worth it, based on the standard that I'm setting for the delivery of service for them. So that's well worth it. To give you a sense of like my operating expenses right now, as well as where we're heading, we're operating at about a 10% profit margin, which I'd like to increase, and I think that we can. We're making an average of $30,000 a month in revenue right now, and then let's see, 30% of that just goes right to payroll. So payroll is going to be a big expense, and then let's see, I'll just use my calculator. So 30 grand minus minus the payroll, and then my pay is I pay myself $5,000 a month of that 30 grand, and then operating expenses eat up most of the rest of that, and then we're putting about 3 grand away in profit. So every 3 months I do a profit distribution, which I split between more aggressively paying down some of our business debt, and then I split it with my head coach, who I made co-owner a couple of years ago, contingent upon his employment. But every 3 months, I give myself a nice little bonus check on top of what I'm already paying myself. So that's kind of like present situation. My rent is $6,000 a month. And a good rule of thumb, it's also kind of why we should grow a little bit. Like I said, the space has always been a little bigger than what we've needed, but the reason we should grow is your rent ultimately should actually be 10% of revenue, and I'm more like 20. So that's where growth is important to improve that margin, because if I want that profit margin to go up, I need rent to not be 20% of what we make. So if at $60,000, my rent's now 10% of what I make. Now that the picture of that picture of what the profit's doing looks a heck of a lot better. Basically, at this point for us, we have a budget that's like kind of a baseline budget that's that $30,000 a month level, where everything's kind of covered, all the bills are paid, everybody's paid, and we've got a little bit of profit, so that's good. So everything's good, kind of good but not good enough is how I define that baseline level. And the way I operate the budget, going forward, is like any dollar above 30,000 that I make, 30% of it, 30 cents of it goes to payroll. 30 cents of it goes to other operating expenses, because as your revenue goes up, your expenses do go up, and then 40% of it goes to profit, meaning that as we grow, we get more and more profitable. Ultimately, when we're maxed out, I'm looking for 30% profit. Yeah, so rent's obviously the big one. Payroll is bigger than rent right now, because we've grown, hooray. But rent and payroll are the two biggest ones. Beyond that, you've got some insurance costs, you've got utilities for your space, which can vary obviously depending on season and what kind of space and how big you are. It's again, where smaller is a little bit better. I usually budget $1,000 a month for utilities, and it's usually less than that. It's very rare that it's more than that. So that usually covers us nicely. What else for expenses? Software expenses are fairly sizable. You need a gym management software to handle like your scheduling and your billing and stuff like that. You need some sort of CRM or customer retention management software, I think is the acronym for that. Something where you can email, you want to build a list of emails and phone numbers, so you need something where you can keep that list and where you can email those people, and market to them, and market to anybody that reaches out to you. Website management fees, those can vary. I'm paying about $300 a month for that. Website management fees, marketing management, mastermind fees. That's another, between the two of those, that's another $2,500 a month. The mastermind's $1,000, and then the marketing's $1,500 a month. Those are the biggest fees. Random things like the gym phone number, a couple $100 here, a couple $100 there. That's really what you're looking at, in terms of those. Those are like the big wave top things. And, what you want to pay attention to is you do need to have your operating expenses and payroll, like they need to fit within your revenue. That's a big concept of, Mike Michalowicz's book, Profit First, is you can't just you can't just operate under this paradigm of like, oh, let's spend whatever, and then whatever might be left is profit. If you do that, you're just probably not going to have much profit left over. So you do need to make sure you fit your fit your expenses to your revenue. But that said, you also, if growth is the plan, you do want to not be penny wise and pound foolish. So the other side of that coin is that most recent, that marketing company that I just mentioned, that fee, that $1,500 fee, that's a new and fairly large expense that I just signed up for, but I know exactly how I'm going to get that money back month after month and how I'm going to multiply that money. So you can calculate a reasonable ROI, return on investment, on certain expenses and know that you're going to get those back. If I spend $1,000 on Facebook ads and it helps me get 10 clients, that means I now have $3,000 coming in month after month after month off of that one-time $1,000 spent. That's a great use of money. And $1,000 a month on paid ads is actually another good ballpark for how much you should be spending on paid stuff. You want to make sure organic stuff is working fine, like your website is working for you, your Google My Business listing is performing for you, you're getting good referrals from your existing clients, you're going out in town, you're meeting and greeting people, you're kissing hands and shaking babies, and all that stuff. So you want to get all that organic stuff up and running, working for you. But then at some point, you do want to have some paid stuff, and for this size business, about $1,000 is a good ballpark for those kinds of things. God, something I wish I knew before starting this type of business that I know now. I wish that I had known to join an industry specific mastermind or hire a fitness industry specific business coach. That's another thing that's kind of expensive. The current mastermind group that I'm in and all that's just a group of other gym owners just like you. So you typically want to find something that they're not just in the gym space in general, but they're like specifically your kind of business. Like in my case, doing primarily small group personal training. So anyways, it costs me money to be in a group of like 50 to 100 other gym owners like that. And then we meet a couple times a year in little conventions. It's $1,000 a month. It's not cheap. It helps me make so much more money than that. It's not even funny. I think if I hadn't hired my first business coach, I probably wouldn't still be in business. Just because first year was rocky enough, and I went through a divorce my first year in, which didn't help the financial situation. So we need to get things moving in the right direction really fast. And hiring a business coach is a good way to do that. Because the other thing is, and this goes back to like being a veteran in business. When you're a veteran, you naturally have a team around you, and we're team players. When you're a business owner, you're by yourself. You have to construct that team yourself. And I think a big part of that team is a business coach that is familiar with the specific business model that you're running. Other parts of that team, you want a good lawyer, like general, like agreements and contracts lawyer, if necessary, if it needs to be a different guy, a good real estate lawyer. And then you want a good banker, good loan officer, good mortgage guy. At a minimum, those are good places to start. And I'm always sort of building my Rolodex at this point. Again, playing nice with others and building that team and being a team player. And that seems to be working in my favor really well. I've got a few little things in the works, but I'd say specific to On Target Fitness, I estimate in the grand scheme of things, we're at about, halfway to maybe even only a third of the way to our ultimate full capacity. So we're at about, I don't know, like 140 personal training clients right now. I think maxed out for us is somewhere between 250 and 300. So I'm kind of hitting it hard with the marketing as of lately. It's been really good lately. I've been getting a lot of really high quality signups lately. So we've been nice, steady, fairly aggressive growth. It's very sustainable, still maintaining our retention, which is really important. So I just kind of feel like I'm on the path to make $1 million business. And that's what I'd like to do with On Target Fitness. And then on top of that, I am exploring options for a second location. It could be, it's not likely to have the name On Target Fitness. It's probably going to be a little bit different, but it'll still be a personal training gym. So exploring that. And then I have already dipped my toes into the, real estate investing waters. and that's already proven to be like great. So probably continuing with that. For me personally, I kind of want to graduate from being the guy that like owns and operates this one thing, and I'm sort of like a full-time personal trainer. As much as I love that, I kind of want to graduate to being, an investor and somebody that runs multiple things, because it's a fun bit of personal development for me. And then it's also, I've noticed when I took my first big steps away from like the day-to-day of the gym, took a road trip last fall, which was super fun. It really, watching my team step up to the plate and nail it is really, really cool. And so I'm starting to get kind of addicted to the team building side of the operation at this point. It's cool to see what people that you've trained up are capable of. Most of my coaches have zero personal training experience when I hire them. I train them up. I make sure they're certified, and then I train them up. So watching people that start with me real green, but real excited to help people, change their lives with fitness and nutrition, and watching them learn and grow and thrive. It's friggin' fun. So the leverage of being able to run multiple operations and help more and more people change their lives is, I'm already a little bit hooked to it. So that's definitely, what my future looks like. Finding the answers. I do read a lot. These books aren't like a special decoration that I set up just for this. I probably read a book about every 2 weeks, with not all of them being business books, but a majority of them being business books. So almost any like hard lesson I've had to learn, I've learned from a combination of doing it wrong, feeling that pain, and then finding some source of information that has the answer. Somebody has figured out darn near everything under the sun. You don't need to invent anything. And that's kind of been my attitude, that like, I know somewhere there's the answer. So like when I was struggling with managing the cash flow of the gym, where like we're making good money, but it's sort of like money comes in and money goes out, and I'm always broke, even though we're like doing well, which is a very common scenario. So you got killer sales, but you're still just kind of broke. That's a cash flow issue. And the best book on that is Profit First by Mike Michalowicz. So if you read that book, you'll learn how to fix that, and then you'll get the answer. So a big key is just my willingness to know if something's not working well, I know there's got to be a better way, and I know I just got to find it, and find whoever has figured that out and ask them the right questions. And whether that's my business coach, some other member of my mastermind, again, talking to somebody else on that team, talking to a lawyer, talking to, a realtor, finding the right book from the right person, following the right business person on Instagram. But yeah, finding the right answer, and just not giving up, even though things look kind of dire, knowing like if you're struggling with something, there's somebody else who has struggled with that too, who figured it out. They're not smarter than you. They're not better than you. You can figure it out too. So why not you? Why not you? You can do it. It's going to take so much more work than you can imagine. But it's also going to be a lot more worth it than you can imagine. And, there's a saying that entrepreneurs often say, that they would rather work 80 hours a week for themselves than work 40 hours a week for somebody else. I think that's very, very true. I probably don't work 80 hours a week anymore. I've definitely like sustained that pace for an extended period of time. 60 does tend to be my sweet spot. So I do admittedly like work a lot more than a normal 9-to-5 person, but I can also tell you the majority of what I do does not feel like work. It is work, but not a lot of it feels like this, I don't know, tedious grind. It's rare that I do something tedious. And usually if I'm doing something tedious, it is actually part of something more exciting. Like if I'm filling out, SBA loan paperwork is very tedious. But if you do it, you're going to be able to start a dream. So it's very much worth it. So even when I do tedious stuff like that, it's like in the grand scheme of things, it's pretty darn exciting. So you can do it. It's harder than you could possibly imagine. Don't worry about the haters. You're going to lose some friends along the way too, because you're going to have to start to think differently and operate differently. If you're going to start a business as a veteran, you can't do the thing where you get out, you get fat, you eat a bunch of garbage, and you drink all the time, and then your whole identity is just kind of living in the past. what you need to do if you want to be successful in business as a veteran is be proud of your service. Don't hide it. You don't need to like change that aspect of you, and be proud of all the skills that you've developed and the character that you've developed as you serve. Bring that forward with you into a new chapter. Don't live in the past. Let that shit go. Still keep in touch with your old friends, still love your old friends, but you gotta grow. You can't just sit around in your garage drinking beer all the time. And some people don't like that when you don't do that. Because some people want you to sit around and get fat with them, and they don't want you to be successful, because then it says something about them. And you'll be, unfortunately, like a little disappointed at times who's sort of cheering for you and who isn't. And sometimes it'll sting, but the people that are cheering for you make you feel so good, it's crazy. The people that will help you for no reason, will blow you away. So overall, like, it's good, it's wild out here, but it's like, you're a lion on the Serengeti. You're not a lion at the zoo. The lions at the zoo get fed all the time. The lions out in the Serengeti get to be real lions, though. So it comes with the good and the bad, but I think it's 100% worth it.